Hello everybody and welcome back to This Is Me, but it's all about you. I'm Tina Willis, and every Monday we spend a few minutes together exploring the mindset shifts that help us build more confidence, that help us build more freedom, and also help us build that little bit more courage. Because here's the thing, the most important journey that you are ever going to take is becoming the person you were always meant to be. So grab a cuppa, get yourself comfortable, and let's begin. I want to ask you something today. Have you ever been waiting for somebody to tell you that it's all right to change your life? You know, maybe you've been waiting for your partner or your spouse to say it's okay. Maybe you want them to understand you more. You know, maybe you've been waiting for your family to approve what you want to do. Or for your boss to absolutely recognise your worth. You know, how often does that happen? Or maybe you've been waiting for your friends to stop questioning you on everything that you do. Or even perhaps, you know, you've been waiting for that little voice inside your own head to finally say that yes, you're ready now. But what if that voice never says it? What if the people around you never fully understand you? What if nobody ever hands you the permission that you've been waiting for? Would you stay exactly where you are? You know, because today I want to talk about something that I wish that I had understood, you know, much earlier in my own life, because I waited and I should never have done it. You do not need permission to change your life. I'm going to repeat that. You do not need permission to change your life. All right? You don't need permission to begin again or start over. And you certainly don't need permission to become a different version of you. I think, and I truly believe that so many of us spend years sitting in something that I call the waiting room. And the waiting room, it's an invisible place where nothing looks particularly wrong from the outside. You know, life continues. We get up, we go to work, we work hard, we do everything that's expected of us. We look after everybody else. We pay the bills, we smile when people ask how we are. And we say two of the worst words we can ever possibly say about our life. And those words, I'm fine. But inside, you're not fine. You're not great. You're not amazing. You're waiting. You're waiting for more confidence. You're waiting for more money. You're waiting for the kids to grow up. You're waiting for retirement. You're waiting for the right opportunity, the perfect moment. You're waiting for life to calm down. You're even waiting for Monday. You're waiting for Friday to come. You're waiting for your holidays. You're waiting for some day. But here's the truth. Some day is not a day on the calendar. Some day can become that hiding place, and some day may never come. You know, that hiding place is where dreams are postponed. They're put on hold by so many times, by so many people. Eventually we stop talking about them altogether. And I know that because I spent years in that waiting room. I wasn't always desperately unhappy in my career, but I absolutely wasn't deeply fulfilled either. I was just existing. I was functioning. I was achieving targets. I was pushing for promotions. I was surviving every corporate day. But I wasn't really asking myself, T, is this the life you really want? Because I was too busy living the life I was supposed that everybody else wanted me to do. That I supposed I had to, you know, and maybe you understand that feeling. Perhaps your life looks perfectly great from the outside. You've got the great job, the great career, you've got the responsibilities, you've got the routine, you're dependable, you're capable, you're the one that every single person turns to. But you know, somewhere underneath all of that, there's a quiet part of you asking, is this it? is this really it? And then another voice quickly answers inside your head, don't be ungrateful. You're too old to change now. You should be happy with what you have. What will people think of you if you make any changes? Anyway, who do you think you are anyway? That voice can keep us sitting in that waiting room for years. You know, for a very long time, I believed that if I worked hard enough, someone would eventually notice. I thought that there'd be a moment when somebody would look at everything I had given all my life and say, Tina, yeah, you've done enough now. You can have a rest. You've proved yourself, girl. You've earned the right to breathe. But you know what? That moment never came. Instead, the targets grew, the budgets grew, the emails grew, the stress grew, the burnout grew, the expectations increased, the hours became longer, and the more capable I appeared, the more people expected me to carry, and that weight became heavy. And that's what often happens. Everybody assumes that you can keep going because you always have. But just because you can carry something doesn't mean that you're going to carry it for a long time or carry it forever. I spent decades building that career, meeting those expectations and doing what needed to be done. Yet somewhere along the way, the higher I climbed, the more I did, I lost touch with me. Not all at once. It happened pretty quietly. It turned up out the blue. One compromise at a time, one late night at a time, one early morning at a time. Missed moments every time. One more, oh, I'll get time to rest soon. It'll be later, but I'll get time to rest. Until eventually, later had become years. And when I finally reached that point of burnout where I knew something had to change, nobody gave me permission. There wasn't a committee meeting and said, Tina, you've had burnout now, you're allowed to relax. Nobody presented me with a certificate. No one stood up and said, now Tina, you can have a different life now. I had to choose it myself. And that was the most terrifying experience in my head and my life. But you know what? It was also the beginning of everything. I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that I handed you a beautiful piece of paper. And at the top of that paper, in huge letters, it says, permission granted. And underneath it says, permission to dream again. You got it. You've got permission to change your mind. You finally got permission to outgrow the life you once chose. You've got permission to begin before you feel ready. You've got permission to fail and to learn and to be seen trying. You've got permission to take up space for yourself. You've 100% got permission to want more, to rest, to say no, to say yes. You've got permission to become somebody new. How great does that feel? Now imagine at the bottom of that page, there's one blank space. One blank space that's got a signature line. And the only signature that's missing is yours. That is the part so many of us overlook. Because we keep handing that pen to everybody else. We keep handing it to our partners and our spouses. We keep handing it to our parents. We keep handing it to our boss, our friends, social media, society, and we wait for them to sign off on our dreams. But this is your life. Nobody else can sign that permission slip for you. You've got to sign it. And there's something else I've learned along the way, that the people who love you so much may still not understand you. They won't understand your decision. They may worry. They will absolutely question you. They actually might project their fears onto your choices. That doesn't always mean that they want you to fail. You know, sometimes it simply means that your courage is taking you somewhere that they can't imagine yet. But it's not there for them to imagine. It's there for you. Their dreams are not your dreams. So why do we wait for permission? Why do we wait? Because I think we wait because approval of somebody else feels safe. If everybody agrees with us, we feel protected. And if things go wrong, at least we can say to them, well, everybody thought it was a good idea for me to do it. Really? But when we choose something for ourselves, we also accept that responsibility for that choice. And that's the frightening part. We are afraid of making that wrong decision. We are afraid of looking foolish, of disappointing people and loved ones, of starting and failing. And you know what? We're also afraid of success, because success changes things. It changes how people see us. It changes what is expected of us. And it absolutely may require us to leave behind an identity we've worn for years. The reliable employee, the quiet one, the sensible one, the person who never rocks the boat. Has that been the identity that you've had? You know, sometimes we remain stuck, not because we don't want a different life, because we actually don't know who we'll become once we step into it. And yet the bigger cost, let me tell you, is waiting. Because every year we postpone our own life. Time waits for nobody. Time continues moving. Look at it now, we're halfway through the year. Where's that gone? The calendar doesn't pause while we gather courage. The opportunities don't always wait for us. Our energy changes every single day, and our circumstances change. And then one day we may look back and realise that we spent years waiting for permission that was ours to give all along. And I want you to remember an image from today's episode, guys. I want you to imagine that you're standing in front of a locked door. And behind that locked door is a life that you keep thinking about. The life that you keep thinking about is more peace, more freedom, more purpose, more time, more creativity, and more of being you. And you stand there knocking at that door, waiting for somebody to open it. You knock louder and louder, and you explain why you deserve to come in, and you wait patiently. And then you become frustrated. You begin to believe that perhaps the door was never meant for you. And then one day, you look down. And you look down and you realise that the key has been in your hand the whole time. The key to that door has been in that hand of yours that whole time. And that key is your decision. Not certainty, not confidence, not waiting for everybody else's approval. Your decision. Because confidence comes after we begin, after we take action. Clarity often comes after we move, and courage does not always feel brave. You know, sometimes courage is those trembling hands and that feeling of butterflies in your stomach, but you turn the key anyway. You turn the goddamn key. Now, I don't want you to hear this episode and think I'm telling you to like walk away from your job tomorrow, move country tomorrow, sell your house, completely reinvent yourself by Friday. That isn't courage. That's absolute chaos. Real change doesn't always come with one dramatic leap. Okay, more often it simply begins with that one honest decision, that one conversation, that one job application, that one phone call, that one inquiry to start an online business like I share every single day, that 1 hour you set aside for yourself, that one boundary you put towards others, a page of a book that you wanted to write, just that one page, that one idea, and that one small promise kept to yourself. Because everything we do in life starts with small steps. And we often dismiss them because they don't look impressive enough. But small steps are how we prove to ourselves that change is possible. And every time you take a small step, you send yourself a message. I can trust myself. I can trust my decisions. And that matters. That's huge. Because the biggest barrier is not always the outside world. In fact, it's never the outside world. The biggest barrier is the belief that we let ourselves down again. We worry about ourselves. We let ourselves down so we won't try. So don't begin by promising yourself a completely different life. Begin by making one promise small enough to keep. And this is something that I really want to make part of our time together every week. And I'm calling it one small step. So before we finish today, I want you to choose one small step that is going to move you closer to the life that you want. Not 10 steps, not a 5-year plan, not something you'll begin when everything's perfect, because nothing is ever perfect. Just that one small step. And perhaps for you, it's updating your CV. Perhaps it's contacting me to see what I do. Perhaps it's researching. Perhaps it's starting a savings pot, or recording your first video ever, or writing, as I say, that first page of a book you wanted to do. Maybe it's going for a walk and getting some healthy exercise, or saying no to something that absolutely drains you, or saying yes to something that absolutely excites you. You know, your step actually doesn't need to make sense to anybody else. It only needs to make sense to you. So let me ask you, if fear wasn't making the decisions in your life, and if fear didn't have control over your life, what would you choose? If nobody could judge you, what would you try? If age wasn't part of the conversation, what would you begin? If you knew you could learn as you went, what would you do to take that first step? And maybe the biggest question of all is, whose permission are you still waiting for? Think about that. Whose hands have you got on the steering wheel of your ship? Because sometimes, you know, we say we're waiting for more time or more confidence, when really the truth is we're waiting for somebody else to reassure us that we're allowed to want what we want. So let me tell you, you are allowed. You're allowed to want a peaceful life. You're allowed to want to do meaningful work. You're allowed to want to help others. You're allowed to change direction. You're allowed to decide that what once suited you no longer serves you. Because if it no longer serves you, why the hell are you doing it? You are allowed to choose yourself without becoming selfish. And you're absolutely allowed to grow without apologizing to people who preferred the other version of you. Because if they don't appreciate you as the new you, then maybe they're not meant to be in your circle at all. So this week, I would love you to write your own permission slip. I want you to take a piece of paper this week and write down, I give myself permission to, and then finish that sentence. Don't overthink it, just do it. I give myself permission to. Finish the sentence. Write the first honest answer that comes to you. And it might be that you give yourself permission to rest. You give yourself permission to start over again. You give yourself permission to be visible, because why hide when you were born to stand out? You give yourself permission to stop explaining yourself to every Tom, Dick and Harry. You know, you give yourself permission to want more. We're allowed. You give yourself permission to believe that your best years may still be ahead of you. And then sign it, date it, and keep it somewhere where you can see it. Because there's something so powerful about turning that internal decision into something visible. And please, I'd love you to share your answer in the comments. What are you giving yourself permission to do this week? Let me know. because I'll be with you 100% of the way, guys. And you never know that your answer in those comments may be exactly what another woman needs to read. So today's Tina thought for you. People can spend years asking everybody else's permission to do something, when the only permission they ever truly need is their own. So today, sign your own damn permission slip. Turn that key. Choose that one small step. And remember that life that you've been dreaming about is not waiting for everybody else to approve of it. It's waiting for you to decide that you are worthy of living it. So, thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I can never take it for granted that you've chosen to spend part of your day with me here. I really, really appreciate it. And as we complete episode 10, wow, episode 10, I also want to say a huge, huge thank you to every person who has listened, every person who has watched them, every person who has commented or shared an episode or quietly taken something away from these conversations that's helped them. So this podcast is called This Is Me, but it's all about you, because although I share parts of my journey, my greatest hope, and I pray, is that somewhere, somebody is listening. And within the words that I speak, that you recognise a piece of your own story. And if this conversation today has helped you, please share it with someone who may need permission to choose herself too. Subscribe or follow so we can spend this time together every single Monday. And remember that your one small step could be the step that you've always wanted to take. So what's yours going to be this week? I'd love to know. So next Monday, we are going to talk about something that holds so many people back without them even realising it. And that subject's going to be why we keep comparing our beginning to somebody else's middle, and how to stop feeling as though we're already behind. So until then, guys, be kind to yourself, protect your peace, keep believing in what's possible, keep believing in you, and most importantly, keep choosing you, because your story isn't over yet. I'm Tina Willis, and this has been This Is Me, but it's all about you. So until then, believe, grow, and choose you. See you next week, guys. Bye for now.